Yo, everyone, this is Steve. This is my first English video. I decided to make a video in English because it was well needed. I've been doing this for like 2.5 years. I've only made like 15 videos, but I haven't made a single English one yet. And my American viewers were like, "Hey, man, why don't you make an English video?" Kind of explaining, how you studied, what books you use, how you got started into it, and just kind of get to know me a little bit more personal, I guess. This is like the third time I've tried to make this video. Like every other time I make this video, it's like 14 minutes long, and then like my webcam starts, like the sound just goes like after a little bit while. So I'm gonna like break this up into a few different parts. So I guess I'll get started. The first books I used. Well, no. First I should. I'll just go with the books first. And okay, first books I used. I was about 17, 18, my fourth year of high school. Senior year of high school, we did something called CIS, and we used the Genki 1, and we used the Genki series. And I would recommend this series because they go into depth pretty deep about like grammar and like I'd say about a lot of stuff. Like they give really good examples, and like every chapter they're pretty consistent. They have like a vocabulary page with a bunch of words that you see that are like. And the first page is like a dialogue, and it has a lot of those words that are in the vocabulary page that's on the next page. And then the page after that, it has a bunch of exercises in grammar. Oh, it has the grammar, and then it has exercises the pages after that. It's basically the same format for all the chapters, which is really good. And Genki 2 is the same thing, except it just gets a little bit more difficult. They go into more like difficult grammar, like still not. I mean, on the scale of things, it's not difficult, but. This is, the first book is a pink book, and it says Kyoon Kanji, same thing as Volume 1. If you study the 500 kanji from this book, from these two books, you can read, well, of course, 500 kanji, but by this time you have recognized all the radicals, and so when you look at a kanji, you should be able to write it, more or less. I mean, unless it's like, yutsu. I don't know if you guys know how to write that. That's like the last video I made by myself. That was the title of it, and I don't know anybody who can write that at the moment. Even my Japanese friends usually can't write that. It's pretty difficult, I'd say. On the scale of things, it's pretty hard. Like I just repeated myself twice. And the next one I would recommend. Well, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I think it's a pretty good book. But it's like it's missing a few things like English, but I don't know. But I also, that's another reason why I do like the book, is because there's not a single English word in this book. Besides, like, I mean, when you're learning like the chapter part. But this one's Chūkyū Karamanabu. This one, I love the book, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people who are like just studying, because first of all, it's from intermediate level, but intermediate's it's really relative. So I would say like this is the first page of the book. Not that much tango, not that much vocab on it, but you get to like it gets pretty hard. Like I'll go to the last chapter now. Alright, and the last chapter, the first page of the last chapter is pretty chock full of words and stuff, and the first, like, it gets pretty difficult. Like the first chapter the story is more like a paragraph long, and then the second, like the last chapter, it's like 2 pages long, and it's pretty. Then we go on to my favorite kanji series. I've only got the 4th level and the 3rd level, but I would highly recommend these because these are like Japanese people that want to take the kanji kente test that's in Japan. It's like a kanji, basically like a huge kanji test to have. These are the books, the problem books. It's like just a big study guide that has a bunch of kanji in it that you can read and write. It goes into pretty difficult stuff. If you can, right now, like I'd say my kanji level is in between, like between the level 3 and 4. Let me see. If you, it has a description on the back. If you pass this, you can read this much kanji. This amount of kanji, right? Like this is. If I pass the third level, you can read about 1,600 kanji, and maybe like including the 600 like name kanji and all that stuff. And if you pass, this starts off from level 10, 10 being the lowest. If you can pass the first level, level 10, you can read whatever the first graders in elementary school can read. And by the time you hit like 5th level, 4th level, you can read about 1,300. The first level is like maybe 80. It's pretty not that much. But I would say very recommended. If you can ever get a chance to go to like, I don't know if they have them in the United States. I know LA has them because I was out there for 2 years, and they have them. But not quite sure if any other students. That's the back of it. Haha, genius. All right, man. Here you go. Those right there. And last but not least, this is the book I never used personally. Like I bought it for my first year of college when I was at the school, and this one's called Kanji Kana. You can read it. And this is the first one. This is also a series. If you get the books that go along with this, the 1 and 2, you'll be able to read all the Joyo Kanji. And the Joyo Kanji is basically like a standard government. Like they made like a standard for people having to read about 1,945 kanji, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the basic kanji. Yeah. So that most Japanese people are, well, I would say like a good majority can read that, and I would say the most of them could probably read up to maybe, I'm not talking about writing, but reading maybe about 3,000. I would say you have to, if you can read about 2,000, you can read the newspaper. I'd say not like completely fluently, but you can read a good majority of it. Yeah. So those are the books I used. Study tips, don't really have many, but what I can say is, I think it takes a lot of dedication when it comes to making a Japanese environment for yourself. Because that's just how I did it. When I went off my first year of college, I was in the dorms like most other freshmen, and I basically, I always had like a Japanese TV show on, like Japanese variety TV shows, or like a drama. I would always be watching something, even if it wasn't interesting. It'd always be in Japanese, so I got my listening. I'd get used to hearing, because by the time I'd been in Japan 3 times by the time, but when you're in Japan, you get used to the speed, but you still don't know that much. That it depends on who you are, but you don't know that many words like to catch the speed here. And so